So welcome everybody to this town hall for the Utah ARRL section manager. I will be hosting tonight's town hall. My name is Chad Butters. Call sign is Whiskey Echo 7 Charlie Bravo. A little while ago, the Utah Valley Amateur Radio Club was approached about hosting this town hall, and we thought that would be a great idea. Let these gentlemen, we've got Brett Pruitt and Bob Craven, who are running for this position. So we thought it'd be great for them to have an opportunity to introduce themselves and for us to get to know them a little bit. So we'll go ahead and give them a couple of minutes to introduce themselves. Let's start with Bob. If you want to introduce yourself really quickly, maybe tell us a little bit about your background. We'd love to hear.
Very good. Again, my name's Bob Craven. My current call sign is November 7 Golf Tango Echo. I was first licensed in 1959. I've been licensed, but not continuously since then. 1959 KN7 GFP, a novice license. 1968 WN7PXI, a novice license. 1970s KA7 ORT, a tech, and in the 80s N7 GT as a general. I'm a 25-year plus member of ARRL. I've earned DXCC and work all states. Davis County Amateur Radio Emergency Services Assistant EC in 1999. And member continuously since the 1980s. I was the Utah Section Emergency Coordinator from 2009 to 2012. I was also part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Emergency Response Communications as a surface missionary at the headquarters level for operations and net manager worldwide, 12 years. State ERC specialist, more than 2 years. Division of Emergency Management Communications Officer, 17 years, paid employment. I am a certified ComL, ComT, Oxcom, and have trained the trainer credentials for ComL and ComT. I was the president of the Davis County Amateur Radio Club in 2000. I was field day chairman for the Davis County Amateur Radio Club 3 consecutive years. I was a volunteer at the Weber Davis Canal Break in 1999 for the response and recovery. I was also a Salt Lake Tornado Response volunteer in 1999. Also the San Pete County Tornado in September of 2002. Also worked with the amateur radio volunteers for the 2002 Olympics. I was also a radio at the Yellow Lake Fire in 2024. Done the Salt Lake Days of 47 parade, 20 plus years. Bountiful Handcart Days, 20 plus years. ARRL Elmer Award, December of 2015. ARRL A1 Operator Award, January of 2012. And I hold the Utah Army Mars Call Alpha Alpha Romeo 8 Lima Golf from 2003.
All right, thanks, Bob. Brett, would you like to share with us and help us to get to know you?
Sure. Started out in communications in the United States Army. Was in satellite communications. Went into law enforcement after that at both the local and state level. Moved to Utah to pursue a degree. Currently working on a master's degree, the undergraduate degrees in mathematics. Have held the positions of official emergency station, volunteer examiner, emergency coordinator, section emergency coordinator, and currently section manager for the ARRL Utah section. Since I've been appointed to field positions, I've been opening up barriers that have been in place for decades in Utah to ARRL entities such as ARRL and whatnot. As the emergency coordinator in Washington County, I was able to engage in memorandums of understanding with both the Utah Food Bank, Um, the county, several cities within the county, and Intermountain Health at the county level. When I moved into the section emergency coordinator position, we now have an enterprise level, meaning a statewide level memorandum of understanding with Intermountain Health. We're putting mesh nodes into every single Intermountain Health campus in Utah, and eventually it's going to go Intermountain Health wide. We're in the Utah Poison Control Center. I consistently have emergency managers, city managers calling me going, can we get you in here? So that's what I've done as the section emergency coordinator. Section manager, I'm working with the Sevier County Amateur Radio Club. They are not an ARRL affiliated club right now, but we're working with them to get them to be an ARRL affiliated club, get them an Aries group down there in Sevier County. The sheriff is begging for it. So we're moving and shaking on a lot of fronts.
All right, thanks. So with those introductions completed, I thank both of you for doing that for us. We do have a pretty good list of questions here that people have submitted, and so we'll go ahead and go through those. My plan is to let you both take turns going first on these questions, but would like to have both of you answer to these questions. So the first one is, I think, a big one on everybody's mind. What is your vision for Hamfest in Utah? And Brett, we'll let you start with that.
Well, as I was the planning and ops coordinator for the Zion Hamfest down here in St. George last year. Had a great time, wonderful turnout, and I think it went extremely well. As far as Hamfests go, the more we can get people involved, current Ham members involved, the better off we're going to be. ARRL membership is declining in every section in the league. The reason for that is there's no sense of community here. There's nothing offered that brings everyone together. There may be specific things, but a lot of ham operators are going to say, oh, that doesn't appeal to me. I don't want to go. That doesn't include me. We need to broaden the events that we're hosting so that we're including more operators. The reason membership is on the decline is because we're too focused on what's going on in Newington. We need to focus on what's happening in Utah. And then when we increase membership in Utah, and we're the only section increasing membership in the ARRL, I'm going to get a call from headquarters going, what are you guys doing out there? Why are you increasing membership and everybody else's is decreasing? And it's going to be because we're getting people involved. We're listening to what the members want. They say they want this, we respond to that. We're keeping the members informed. So Hamfests are all part of that. They're just one piece of the puzzle, but we need to not worry so much about Newington, worry more about what's happening in Utah, getting more people involved, and that's how we're going to start increasing membership rates in the league.
Okay. All right. Thanks. And Bob, over to you. And again, the question is, what is your vision for Hamfests in Utah?
That's a good question. And I would turn that back to the membership. What do they think that the Hamfest looks like in Utah for the future? This is their section, and I need to be proactive in listening to every member of the section, every member of the league, every ham radio operator in our Utah section, and take that as the temperature of what's going on within the state as far as Hamfests are concerned.
Okay. All right. And this question is fairly related to the previous one, but and Bob, we'll start with you. will you work to get more of us to be ARRL members?
That's a great
And I
question.
guess kind of what's your plan there is what they're leading to there.
The plan there is to meet with as many clubs and groups as I can and see how they are elmering their constituents in their counties and local communities to increase that membership.
Okay. And Brett, same question to you. What's your plan to get more membership?
To be responsive to potential members, we have to hear what they're saying. And I think one of the big issues a lot of people are having with the league is comments go unanswered, questions go unanswered, and they don't feel like they're being listened to. And more importantly, no one is responding to what they're saying. And so not only do we have to listen to them, we have to take action on what they're saying. And so when the members say, hey, this is what we want, we have to make that happen. Now, we don't have a huge budget, but we do have a huge pool of people that will make things happen if we encourage them to get involved, if we recognize them for what they're doing. There are a lot of ham operators out there doing some amazing things in the Utah section. They're not being recognized. They're getting burnt out. They're getting tired because they feel like they're running into a brick wall because nobody's listening, nobody's responding, nobody's acting on what they're saying. And so this is why league membership continues to decline. Everybody's stuck in their rut and they're thinking this is the way we have to do it. And they're not listening to any other input. In any organization, especially a voluntary one, we have to be collaborative and we have to allow people to take ownership of what they want. If somebody says, hey, I want this, then I would say, what can I do to support you to make that happen? And I think that's critical in keeping people motivated in doing what they love, in doing what they're passionate about, and bringing other people into that.
Okay, cool, good. And Brett, we'll go with you first this time. What are your goals as a Utah section manager?
To reverse the trend of declining membership, we need to get, here's the deal, there's no shortage of ham operators in Utah. We're testing people monthly down here, a dozen people, more than a dozen people. So there are plenty of ham rate. It's not like the hobby is in decline. It's just membership in the league is in decline. And it's because people don't see a value in their membership. And so what I have to do, what we have to do, is increase the value that league membership brings. So that if somebody says $65 a year, what do I get? Well, if all we say is a magazine and a website, that's not much. But if we say you get a magazine, get a website, you could talk to Brett. He listens to everybody, give them some ideas. We've got this activity going on. We've got this going on. Hey, by the way, all of these things combine to add value to the membership. And we can look at nationwide organizations that are growing, that are doing great things, that are getting people involved. And I think the biggest thing why league membership is on the decline is because people aren't allowed to get involved in what's going on. They think there's this little section cabinet and those are the only people that are allowed to do anything. It's complete nonsense. Why can't K7JOE, Joe down in, Moab, start something for the section? I would totally encourage that. And so value is what I will bring to the league in Utah. And that's why I say we have to focus on Utah first and worry about Newington later. We need to bring value to the league in Utah.
Okay. And Bob, what are your goals for as a section manager?
I have 2 ears to listen, 1 heart to listen to all the members and their concerns, and I have 1 voice and 1 mouth to convey those concerns to the division director, and through him to the league.
Okay. This question was kind of formed in more of a statement, but I think it's the kind of his question is clear here. And Bob, we'll start with you. This person said, I've decided not to seek ARRL membership at this time due to the website security breach and subsequent ransom payments. If elected, what would you do to drive or reduce the risk of this happening again? And I would add to that to help build that trust in the league again.
I have no control over the website and the security of the website. All I can do is voice that concern through I keep saying vice director, the division director, through to league headquarters, so they know the concerns of the members here and the non-members of ARRL.
Okay. And Brett, same question to you. I won't read the whole thing again, but how would you address the security breach and the trust issue?
Well, if you look at every county, every city, every state across the country, the number 1 issue that they are most afraid of and they are least prepared for is a ransomware, malware, cyber attack type situation. And I think there's far too much of this, well, it won't happen to us. We're the ARRL, we're not, the National Security Agency, we're not the CIA. And more organizations are figuring out it doesn't matter who you are. If you have data that's valuable to you, people will attack your system, take your data, and hold it until you pay them money. And finally, the league realizes that, okay, yes, we do have something of value. We have data. And data is valuable to us because it's how we communicate with our members. And so I don't think you're going to see another data breach in my lifetime, and I'm not that old, on the league's website, because they now realize exactly what they have, why it's valuable to them, and they understand they need to protect it. Even if it costs a little bit more money than what they're paying now, data security is critical. And it's not just the league. Organizations, government entities are learning this lesson daily. And so I would tell you, be confident. It's happened. It's over and done with. The league has taken steps to harden their systems and protect their data even more than what they were in the past. And I think they're doing a good job. I will continue to stress to them that data is important and it needs to be secured. I'll go through the director. I'll call the CEO. I'll call Mike Walters directly and say, hey, give me an update on the website. Give me an update on the cybersecurity and where we're at, if the members are concerned about it. And I'll disseminate that amongst the members.
Okay, cool. And this is kind of wrapping a couple of questions together, but is the ARRL still relevant, and what can be done to make it more relevant in Utah specifically? And Brett, you're up for this one.
100% relevant. I think the biggest thing they do at the national level is protect our interests with the FCC, with Congress, with lawmakers who say, we could make some money on this bit of the spectrum. Let's take it away. The amateur radio operators don't really use it. And so I think that's the most effective thing they're doing right now. But why they're still relevant is they provide a community for ham operators to engage in. The problem right now is ham operators are not being allowed to engage. They're being ignored. They're not being listened to. They think the section manager is some distant, far off person who grants them permission to take the MCOM course or grants them permission to become an OES or blesses them with the title of EC. That's nonsense. The section manager serves the operators in their section and works to make the ARRL valuable to them. So that's kind of where we're at. And I said it before, we need to focus less on what Newington is doing and focus more on what we're doing in Utah. And that's what I've been doing since I've been in a cabinet position, getting ARRL back alive again in Salt Lake County. It was dead. And we're finally to the point where they're giving out key cards to the Salt Lake County Emergency Operations Center to ARRL operators in Salt Lake County. I don't think that's ever happened before, but that's the amount of trust we've been able to build in the last 3 years. And so the Sevier County Amateur Radio Club, I went down there on my own. They didn't ask me to come, and I talked to them about becoming an ARRL affiliated club. Talked to them about the benefits. I talked to them about there's really no issues with becoming, it doesn't cost any money to become an ARRL affiliated club. So getting people involved and then listening to them, allowing them to engage in the section is where we have to focus first. Then when Newington calls, the section manager says, what are you doing over there? You're increasing membership. You guys are going crazy. I'll tell them, we're listening to the members. We're engaging them. We're bringing value to the league in Utah.
Okay, thank you. And Bob, what is your thoughts on the ARRL being relevant and making it more relevant in Utah?
It is still relevant. I believe that it has a place for us as a place to voice our concerns. Spectrum defense is certainly a big part of the lobbying efforts of the league. Also, a sounding board for all of the different facets of this hobby. I think that we need to focus, again, as Brett said, on our section, but we can't ignore Newington either. We have to address the fact that Newington needs to recognize some of their weaknesses, and the only way we can do that is through the members bringing that to the light of the section manager, him taking it to the league.
Okay, thank you. And so the next question, I'm going to kind of roll some of these together as well. And Bob, this is for you to start with. What will you do for clubs outside the Wasatch Front in St. George and those areas? And are you planning on visiting clubs throughout the state during your term?
I am planning to visit clubs and ARRL groups throughout the state during my term. That's a given. And we want to work with those clubs that both are affiliated and non-affiliated clubs to build their membership, to build their camaraderie with one another, and to build their trust in the section and in Newington.
Okay. And Brett, I know you've touched on this briefly, but how would you respond to that support for clubs outside of those major geographic areas, and will you continue to visit?
Yeah, I've already been doing it. For those of you that aren't familiar with Sevier County, it's Richfield, Monroe. They switch back and forth where they do the meetings. Excellent club. They've got great attendance. Quite a few folks showing up to it. And so I've been, in constant contact with them. And of course, I'll travel the state. I love Utah. I have friends up north. I have friends in Vernal. I love Moab. And I live down in the southwest part of the state. I'm in Hurricane. And so getting to the less visited parts of the state are critical to me. I mean, Sevier County didn't even know how easy it was to become an ARRL affiliated club. And I think what you get in, the High Desert Amateur Radio Club, the Sinbad Amateur Radio Club, probably don't get visited all that often. They're not in the loop and they don't know what's going on in the section. So they can't engage. So they feel disconnected from what's going on. And this is why the league is losing membership everywhere. So I think if you engage those clubs and say, hey, this is what's going on. Hey, contact me. Here's my information. If you ever have a question, get a hold of us. It's critical to growing the membership. And believe it or not, when it comes to emergency preparedness, those ham operators in the Sinbad Club and in the Sevier County Club are far more important to those communities than ham radio operators in Salt Lake County that has piles of money, gobs of radios, all the resources you could possibly want. I'm not saying Salt Lake County amateur radio operators are unimportant, but in the grand scheme of things, in Sevier County and in Sinbad country, which is Carbon County and the place where you have more cows than people, those amateur radio operators are 100% a part of the disaster response plan. And so they need to be in the loop as to what's going on with amateur radio as a whole in the section.
Okay, thanks for that answer. This I think is a really probably contested question, but and Brett, we'll start with you. Are there aspects of amateur radio rules and regulations that you would like to see deregulated that would improve ham radio?
Well, one of the recent things that's happened that I think is great is eliminating the character rate limitation on digital transmissions. And I think that's great. I think if we could get rid of all of that and just say, hey, here's the bandwidth you have to stick within, shove as many characters as you can inside that bandwidth, that's great. And so I'm okay with a little bit of deregulation. I'm not okay with the FCC saying the band plan is out, everybody can do whatever they want, because mass chaos will ensue. But a lot of the rules that have been made regarding amateur radio were made probably back before I was alive. And with all of the new communication methods, I think rethinking some of those restrictions and rules, not eliminating them, but maybe revising them and updating them is not a bad idea. So that's where I'm at on deregulation. I don't want to see the bands just go crazy and there be chaos and anarchy, but we definitely need to bring the rules and regulations up to the 21st century.
Okay. And Bob, what's your ideas on deregulation and maybe improving some of these rules?
Personally, I'm not a fan of deregulation. The way the rules stand right now, I think, is sufficient. However, Brett made a good point. There's many of the parts of the FCC rules that need to be brought up to speed. In specific, the parts of 97, Part 407 that refer to the old civil defense terminology, that's way old and outdated, and it needs to be brought up to emergency management standards. And the only way we're going to get that to happen is for us to be one voice with the FCC. Personally, I have, in my work with the division, I have contacted the FCC about some of those things that are in Part 97.407, and they really don't have any care.
Okay, thank you. And this question is kind of more of your personal motivations, I believe. And Bob, we'll start with you. Why have you decided to be a candidate for a section manager?
I was approached by several of my peers that they would like to see me run as section manager, and that's why I am.
Okay. And Brett, what's your motivations for running for section manager?
Because I know I can continue to make an impact in Utah. I've been doing it for 3 years, and I know I can continue to do so. Look, if I don't win the election, I will give Bob a big old hug and wish him the best as section manager, and I will still continue to do my part to make an impact on amateur radio in Utah. But as section manager, I can make an impact. I can turn league numbers around. I can get people signing up to become ARRL members, and that's what's needed to change things, not just in Utah, but nationwide. Like I said, Newington's not paying attention to the members. But if I can get membership increasing in Utah, if we can get ham radio engaged in Utah, Newington is going to notice, and they're going to call me and they're going to say, "What are you doing?" And I'm going to say, "I'm listening." And that's what you need to do to change things in the rest of the league. So it's kind of like that for others to follow. That's why we have to focus on Utah, make the change in Utah, and then Newington will start paying attention and come around and start listening to ham radio operators. But I'm running for section manager because I've been making an impact, and I know I can continue to make an impact in Utah.
Okay. Next question, and Brett, we'll start with you. I know this has been a hot topic for a lot of people, and I'll read this as they wrote it because I think they were looking for some specific stuff. But he says, "I know there are laws requiring HOAs to give accommodation to amateur radio antennas. Can you comment on whether this has been effective? And examples would be nice if you have them."
It has been effective. We have several HOAs down here in Washington County. The laws at the state level do work. And what you can do is require HOAs to allow amateur radio antennas with minimal restrictions. So Sun River is a huge HOA down here in Washington County. It's a big retirement community, and they want to keep property values high. They want to keep the community looking good. They don't want somebody's house looking like a porcupine. And so what they've done is written into the CCNRs that you can have a ham radio antenna on the off side of the house. So if the curb or the front of your house is here, then you can have an amateur radio antenna back here on the back side of the house, and they're okay with that. And so I'm okay with not having a neighborhood look like a mountaintop telecommunications site. I'm not okay with HOAs saying no antennas, period. You know, there's a give and take there. And so I understand, but making laws that say, hey, HOAs, you have to allow these, you can put slight restrictions on it, but you have to allow amateur radio antennas is great. Santa Clara, the city here in Washington County, or one of the cities here in Washington County, actually has in their city ordinances that you cannot ban amateur radio antennas. I think that's a great model. I think the model that's used in the HOAs down here is fantastic. You have to allow antennas. You can put minimal restrictions like making them put them on the off side of the house, and that's fine.
Okay. And Bob, what's your views on the regulations for HOAs and the effects of the laws?
When PRB1 was put into effect, and that's on a state by state basis, it gave that authority or took away the authority for HOAs to restrict amateur radio antennas, but it's on a individual circumstance, an individual situation in each community. Now, I have written PRB1 letters for several. I'm not going to mention any names or communities, but I've written several letters that have gone out to local jurisdictions in order for ham radio operators to be allowed antennas in their HOA properties, and they've been effective. I also think that the PRB1 has been strengthened in recent years, which is a good move.
Okay. All right. Thanks. And here's another question. We'll start with you, Bob. Here in the state of Utah, we have quite an imbalance of the number of technician licensed radio operators as opposed to some of the higher levels. And that is, compared to the rest of the country, we've got way more technicians per capita than other places. What would you do to help help all those technicians out there see the value in upgrading their licenses?
That's a very interesting question. And I think that it's important that we realize why they entered the hobby. And in many cases, they haven't been elmered past that push to get a license. Once they got their license, then they've been left on their own. We need to encourage our clubs and our local ham radio elmers to continue to mentor these new ham radio operators and encourage them and explain to them all the different facets that can be had within the hobby, get them excited about advancing their license to a higher class to be able to take advantage of those more robust portions of the hobby.
Okay, and Brett, what would you do to help encourage those technician licensed radio operators to upgrade?
Well, it's something I'm working on currently. So the reason in Utah we have this uneven balance of technicians and fewer general and extras is church callings. Church Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, many people get an ERC calling, and so they go buy a Baofeng, they get their technician license, and they fulfill their calling without doing anything else with the hobby. And what I'm attempting to do right now is engage with the church to funnel these ERC called individuals into Aries groups. The reason for that is they'll be better trained as ERC operators, ECS operators. 2, it will get them more involved in the hobby. And 3, the follow on from that is once they see what the hobby offers, they will go ahead and get a higher class license. But the biggest part of this is engaging with the church and getting them to funnel those people into Aries groups so that they can find out exactly what the hobby is all about, because there's a large contingent of hams in the church, and you could probably get all of the know-how, the minimal know-how you need to function on a ham radio from ham operators in the church. But if we're not funneling these people into Aries groups, we're not getting them into the hobby. They're just into serving their church calling. And that's great, but why aren't we funneling these people into Aries groups to get them more training, to make them more effective operators, and subsequently have them enjoying the hobby and going on to get a general or extra class license?
Okay, thank you. This next one, I feel personally very invested in this, just because I've had a lot of friends that I see the radio benefits them. But and we'll start with you, Brett. Disabled hams are often underrepresented in ARRL leadership committees and outreach. What will you do to address this at the section level to ensure equitable representation?
Engage with them. I know many disabled hams, blind hams. They're using handy hams and their radios talk to them. It's a great and wonderful thing. We need to engage. Why can't we have some sort of competition in the Utah section that involves disabled hams? So we give them bragging rights. Why can't we demonstrate to people, other people who have disabilities, exactly what you can do in ham radio, even though you have this disability? I can tell you right now that if you ask blind people, hey, do you think you could be in ham radio? They'd say there's no way. How do you operate a radio when you're blind? Can you be a ham radio operator if you're deaf? The beauty of digital modes, where you're seeing and typing on a keyboard. And so it's just a matter of engaging with people and demonstrating exactly what you can do in this hobby. I don't think there's a single person out there that can't engage in ham radio. I speak to a gentleman on the repeaters. He's Down syndrome, and he's wonderful on the radio. I love talking to him. He asks you a lot about your call sign, though. He's hard with numbers, but that's okay. I enjoy talking to him. And so this is what we have to do. I mean, we have to let people know what the hobby is. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years, is introducing people to ham radio. I work at Utah Tech University down here in St. George. Before I worked at Utah Tech University, there wasn't any interest in a ham radio club. As soon as I started working there, I was approached by a student. They said, hey, do you think we could start a ham radio club here at the university? I said, yeah, I've got an HF radio. I'll donate it. And let's get this ball rolling. So he went and filed the paperwork and got the club up and running, and we're working on building that club right now. So it's just a matter of talking to people, getting people involved, and recognizing what ham radio is doing in the community, talking to news outlets, talking to the general public at fairs and community events. And they say, is that a CB? No, this is way more fun than a CB. And so that's what it is it's a lack of engagement.
Okay. And Bob, what would you do to help increase the engagement of disabled people in this hobby and in our ARRL?
I would ask them what they would like us to do to represent them, not only locally with their clubs and their local groups, but also with headquarters.
Okay. And this will probably be the last question I ask, and maybe we'll give you a couple of minutes to wrap up your thoughts. But I lost the question I wanted to ask. Okay. And Bob, we'll start with you. How will you build accessibility into section level emergency planning, including both training and activations?
Explain accessibility.
I think And I didn't write this question, but if I were to interpret it, I think it is asking how, as a section manager, would you help to include more people into the emergency services and training and activities or activations?
Okay, I think I understand. And that's up to the local jurisdictions and their emergency management officials at any level, and how they are going to write the amateur radio into their planning. And it will be totally up to them. We can offer, but it's their choice to choose.
Okay. And Brett, same question to you. How would you increase the interactions in the emergency services?
We have to demonstrate that ham radio serves an actual purpose in disaster response. That's exactly what I've done as section emergency coordinator in Utah. Mesh networking is not the end-all be-all of emergency communications. But what it does is it opens doors with disaster response agencies. And let me be clear, I'm not only talking about governmental disaster response agencies. I'm talking about VOAD, talking about the Red Cross, the Salvation Army. What you have to demonstrate to them is that you bring something to the table in a disaster scenario. The problem is they don't understand 2 meters, 70 centimeter. They don't understand HF, VHF, UHF. They don't know what you're talking about, and they don't care because they don't know. What they do care about is being able to get on a VoIP telephone when there's no internet and still communicate to the county EOC using a mesh network because they're familiar with the telephone. What they want to be able to do is video conference, just like we're doing here, even when there's no internet, because they're familiar with Zoom. They're familiar with Microsoft Teams. They're familiar with all of that. And so if you can bring that to them and say, here's what we can do, even when you don't have the internet, then eyebrows start raising. Then jaws start dropping. And they go, wait a minute, you can give me quasi-internet capabilities without an internet? And we say, yeah, of course, I can give you video conferencing capability from the health department to the EOC, from the hospital to the clinic over in Hurricane. I can do all of that. And then that opens the door, and then we can mess with VHF, UHF, HF, all that, all we want. They probably don't care about it. They just care about the part that they're familiar with. And so as section emergency coordinator, that's what I've done, is I've introduced to them ham radio capabilities that they are familiar with. They don't know what the heck a mesh network is, but they know Wi-Fi. And they know that I can connect them. I've had them get on their cell phone on the mesh network and talk and use the mesh network because they're familiar with their cell phone. Anytime you get into an emergency exercise, what's the first thing anybody does? They pull out their cell phone and they start moving their thumbs around. And so showing disaster response agencies, both governmental and non-governmental, what we bring to the table in a way that they understand opens doors and increases accessibility. And we're getting phone calls to partake in exercises now. We're not calling them saying, please, please let us come play in the disaster response world. They're saying, hey, can you come be involved in this? Because we want what you got. And that's a beautiful thing. And I'm going to continue to do it. If I'm section manager or not, I'm going to continue to do it.
Okay. All right. So I think that's the last of the questions I have for you. Although we had tons more, we don't have much time for them. But I would like to give each of you a chance to just kind of wrap up your thoughts and let people know, you know, or share with them what you want them to know about you. We let Bob start with his introductions first. So, Brett, we'll let you give your little closing remarks, and then we'll move on to Bob and do the same.
Look, if I'm section manager or not, I'm still going to do everything I can to make an impact in the Utah section. I'll still be a league member. I'll still bust my butt to educate people about the ARRL, to make it better. I will be a cheerleader for Bob if he wins the section manager election, and continue to support the league in Utah. If I am section manager, I'm going to continue going 100 miles an hour with my hair on fire. We're going to make this thing great. We're going to get people involved. We're going to start increasing membership. And when the league in Newington notices that Utah is doing something that no other section is, and they pick up the phone and they call me and say, what is going on in Utah? I'm going to say, we're listening to our people. We're engaging with our people. We're doing what league members want us to do. Maybe it's time you should start doing that, and you'll see some change in the league elsewhere. And so regardless of the outcome of this election, that's where I'm headed, and I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, thanks, Brett. And Bob, give us your closing thoughts and passing on whatever you'd like us to know.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to get to speak to our constituents. I have a lot to learn. I think I have some pretty extensive experience at the grassroots level. If I am elected as section manager, I will learn a lot and apply what I learned to help the section grow and to help Newington know what we're doing. And I appreciate that opportunity. Also, if Brett wins the election, I will give him 100% support and continue to operate where I can in my local jurisdictions and with the state.
All right. Thanks, Bob. And thanks both of you for your time, not only tonight for this town hall, but for the time that you guys both put into the hobby, the people of Utah, and your willingness to serve us as section managers. We thank you for that a lot. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up this meeting. Thanks everyone for tuning in and listening over on YouTube. And hopefully we were able to get you some of the information that you were looking for. So,
Thanks,
good night,
Chad.
everyone.
Thanks, Brett.